I traveled across the country to see the new home of my daughter, whom I had raised by sacrificing everything. But she whispered, "Don't tell the neighbors you're my father. Just be an old friend from California." The betrayal struck like a knife, contrasting my love with her shame for her ordinary father. She regretted it because the consequences of her lie destroyed her perfect world. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Don't tell the neighbors you're my father. Just say you're an old family friend from California. Anna's whisper cut through the warm June evening like a blade finding its mark. I stood beside my beaten Ford pickup, one hand still gripping the door handle, the other frozen halfway to my duffel bag. 3 days of driving across the country through Nevada's endless desert and Pennsylvania's rolling hills. And this was my welcome. The golden hour light painted everything beautiful. The manicured lawns, the pristine driveways, the expensive cars that made my truck look like a relic. But Anna's words turned that beauty cold. "All right, Anna," my voice came out flat, emotionless. 40 years of raising her, of working double shifts and selling my tools to fund her dreams, and I was now a family friend. The lies sat in my throat like broken glass. She positioned herself between me and the neighbor's yard, her designer dress catching the evening breeze. Everything about her screamed success: the perfect hair, the subtle jewelry, the confidence that money brings. Everything except her eyes, which darted nervously toward the neighboring houses. Beautiful weather for traveling. The neighbor approached with genuine warmth, wiping grass stains from his hands. His lawnmower sat silent behind him, another symbol of suburban perfection. I forced my weathered face into something resembling a smile. Yes, long drive from the West Coast. The words felt foreign in my mouth. I was performing now, playing a role in my daughter's carefully constructed life. The neighbor nodded enthusiastically, launching into small talk about California weather, while I stood there like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. Anna's relief was palpable when the conversation ended. She practically vibrated with nervous energy, her gaze scanning the street for other potential witnesses to my arrival. I grabbed my duffel bag, worn canvas that had traveled with me through 20 years of construction jobs, and slung it over my shoulder. The neighbor waved goodbye, returning to his perfect lawn. His mower roared back to life, drowning out the sound of my heart breaking in small, quiet pieces. Anna turned toward the house, her heels clicking against the pristine driveway. "Come on, let's get you inside." I followed her up the walkway, past flower beds that looked like magazine spreads. Every step took me further from the man who'd driven 3,000 miles to see his daughter and closer to whatever stranger I was supposed to be. The front door loomed ahead, white and imposing, leading into a life where I apparently didn't belong. My calloused fingers tightened around the bag strap as Anna fumbled with her keys. Behind us, the neighbor's mower continued its steady rhythm, a soundtrack to my transformation from father to fiction. Anna pushed open the front door, and I stepped into what felt like a museum exhibit titled "How the Other Half Lives." Cool air conditioning hit my face, carrying the artificial scent of vanilla candles instead of home cooking. The living room stretched before us like a showroom floor, everything coordinated, expensive and cold. "Richard's in his office finishing up some calls," Anna said, her voice artificially bright. "Let me show you around." I followed her through rooms that belonged in a design magazine. The furniture looked like it had never been truly used, all sharp angles and neutral colors. My work boots felt too loud against the hardwood floors, each step announcing my intrusion into this pristine world. The walls told their own story. Framed photographs lined the mantel and hallway. Richard's family skiing in Aspen, romantic shots from European vacations. The kids at private school graduations, professional portraits in expensive frames. Not a single picture included me. "Lots of memories on these walls," I said, my voice carefully neutral. Anna's step faltered slightly. "That's from our Tuscany trip last year. Richard knows all the best restaurants there." In the kitchen, marble countertops gleamed under pendant lights that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Anna quickly moved a familiar cookie container, my homemade oatmeal chocolate chip, from the counter to a cabinet. Even my gifts were being hidden. "We're on keto now," she explained without meeting my eyes. "But the kids might try your cookies." "Might?" The word hung in the air like a question mark. Richard appeared as if summoned, phone still pressed to his ear. He held up one finger, the universal signal for important people must wait, while finishing his conversation. When he finally hung up, his smile was perfectly practiced. "We're glad to have you here, John. Anne's told me so much about you." His handshake was firm, calculated to demonstrate confidence without seeming aggressive. Everything about him screamed success. The tailored shirt, the expensive watch, the way he moved through the house like he owned not just the property, but everyone in it. "Beautiful house," I said, running my hand along the marble island. "Solid foundation." Something flickered in Richard's eyes at the word foundation. He knew, of course, Anna would have had to explain how they'd afforded the down payment for this showcase, but acknowledging my contribution would complicate their narrative. "Anna has excellent taste," he replied smoothly, deflecting credit away from uncomfortable truths. The guest room felt like a hotel suite. White bedding, generic artwork, a card on the nightstand reading, "Welcome guests." In elegant script, no family photos here either. No hint that the man staying here had helped make any of this possible. I set my duffel bag on the pristine white bedspread, the worn canvas looking like a mistake against the expensive fabric. Through the window, I could see the neighbor still working on his lawn, living his own version of suburban perfection. The sound of Richard's phone buzzing filled the silence. Another important call requiring his immediate attention. Anna hovered in the doorway, looking anywhere but at my bag or my face. "Dinner's at 7:30, she said. "Just make yourself comfortable. Make yourself comfortable in a room designed to ensure no one ever truly could." The dining room chandelier cast sharp shadows across crystal glasses and china plates arranged with military precision. I took my assigned seat at the table's end, physically separated from the family cluster at the other side. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I was literally at the margins of their carefully orchestrated life. Richard commanded the head of the table like a corporate boardroom, carving expensive steak with surgical precision. Anna positioned herself as the perfect supporting actress, serving and smoothing conversations like a professional hostess. The teenage kids barely looked up from their phones, earbuds partially visible despite dinner table rules. Only my 2-year-old grandson offered genuine warmth, reaching toward me from his high chair with chubby fingers and an unguarded smile. In this room full of performances, his reaction was the only honest one. "Got promoted to senior partner last month," Richard announced, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a man accustomed to impressive headlines. "Now we can afford even more of life's luxuries." Anna beamed at him with practiced adoration. "Yesterday, we attended Jessica's charity gala. Such fascinating people. A Manhattan surgeon and IT company CEO who just went public." She rattled off credentials like collecting trading cards. Each prestigious connection another badge of social climbing success. The 15-year-old grunted something that might have been acknowledgement. The 12-year-old asked if she could be excused early. "I had a good year too," I offered, during a brief lull. "Finished the Miller House renovation, complete foundation rebuild, custom cabinets throughout." The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples of uncomfortable silence. Anna's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Richard's attention immediately shifted to his wine glass, studying the vintage label with sudden fascination. "Richard, tell us about that corporate merger case," Anna said quickly, steering the conversation back to safer territory. And like that, my contribution to the evening and to their lives was erased. Richard launched into a detailed explanation of legal strategies and billable hours, while I sat there remembering different dinners, kitchen table conversations where Anna shared her college dreams, while I calculated how many overtime shifts would pay for her textbooks, celebrations when she graduated, when she got her first job, when she called to say she'd found the perfect house. "This is for our family, Dad," she'd said. "Then a place where we can all be together." I looked around this dining room, where togetherness meant performance and family meant hiding your history. The baby gurgled and reached for my face again, his tiny fingers touching my cheek with innocent affection. At least someone at this table recognized family when he saw it. Richard checked his phone between bites, the blue screen reflecting off his glasses. International client, different time zones, you understand? I understood perfectly. Everything here had a hierarchy, and I ranked somewhere below international business calls. Anna filled silences with nervous chatter about neighborhood events and social obligations. The children responded in monosyllables when directly addressed. Central Air hummed its artificial lullaby, while I replayed every word, every glance, every careful redirection when I tried to contribute something real to their polished world. My wallet pressed against my hip through the thin pajama fabric. 40 years of carrying the same worn leather billfold, and tonight it felt heavier than usual. Not because of money, I'd never had much of that, but because of the papers folded carefully inside, documents I'd saved because my father taught me to always keep the important stuff close. I sat up, pulled the wallet from my pants draped over the chair. The overhead light seemed too bright, too revealing, so I used my phone's flashlight instead. Blue-white glow illuminated the first paper as I unfolded it with careful reverence. Property contract, my signature, bold and confident in black ink, dated 3 years ago. Primary owner, John Garrett. Investment amount, $140,000. Percentage of ownership, 80%. Anna's name appeared in smaller print, 20%. Based on financial contribution. $0. $180,000, I whispered to the empty room. Primary owner. My signature everywhere. My phone's camera clicked softly as I photographed each page. Evidence, though I wasn't sure yet what I'd need it for. The second document showed the down payment source. My savings account cleaned out. The third revealed the tool sale receipts. 40 years of Craftsman and DeWalt reduced to numbers on a bank deposit slip. The house creaked overhead. Someone walking to the bathroom, probably. I froze until the footsteps faded, then continued my methodical documentation. Wasn't looking for confirmation. Already knew the facts. But seeing them laid out in legal terminology reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten, the difference between what's right and what's comfortable. Thirst drove me to the kitchen around midnight. I moved carefully across the hardwood floors, avoiding the spots that had squeaked during the house tour. The refrigerator's ice maker rumbled to life as I filled a glass with filtered water that tasted like nothing. On my way back, I noticed the laundry room door standing slightly open. Anna was organized to a fault. Everything had its place in her perfect world, but organization also meant filing systems, and filing systems meant records. The folder marked important documents sat on a shelf between detergent and fabric softener. My flashlight revealed mortgage papers, insurance policies, and a copy of our original ownership agreement. Richard's name on the monthly payment obligations, but the property deed told a different story. I photographed everything with the thoroughness of a man who'd spent decades checking blueprints for structural integrity. Details mattered in construction. They mattered here too. Temporary, she said, I murmured to the documents. Nothing here looks temporary. Anna's name appeared in small print throughout. Mine in bold headers. That told the real story. Who owned what? Who'd sacrificed what? Who'd built the foundation that others now stood on? By 2 a.m, I'd created a complete digital record of my legal position. The phone's battery showed 67%, and I had 37 photos documenting 3 years of financial reality that dinner conversation had carefully avoided. Back in the guest room, I sat on the bed's edge, scrolling through images of contracts and bank records. Legal proof of what my heart already knew. I wasn't a family friend visiting from California. I was the foundation this house was built on, buried under layers of social pretense, but still solid, still bearing the weight of everything above it. Dawn light crept through the window as I finally set the phone aside. Sleep came easier now, though I couldn't say if it was from exhaustion or the strange peace that comes with absolute clarity. The next evening, Anna announced we'd been invited to the neighbor's party with the enthusiasm of someone describing a military operation. She'd spent the day in careful preparation, arranging the house like a stage set, while I helped Richard trim hedges and pretended yesterday's document review hadn't happened. "Wear this instead," she said, holding up one of Richard's shirts, expensive cotton with a designer label peeking from the collar. "So you'll fit in better?" I looked at my own flannel shirt, soft from years of washing, honest as worn denim, then at Richard's pristine offering, pressed and perfect as everything else in this house. Sure thing. The borrowed shirt, pulled tight across my shoulders, made me move differently. In the bathroom mirror, I looked like myself wearing a costume, trying to pass for someone I'd never been. Anna appeared behind me, adjusting the collar with nervous precision. "Remember, you're our friend from California. We met through mutual acquaintances. Keep it simple." Her reflection showed the strain of maintaining so many careful lies. I wanted to tell her about the documents, about legal ownership and financial contributions, but watching her hands shake as she fixed my collar told me this wasn't the moment. Anna was drowning in her own deceptions, and throwing more truth at her would only push her deeper underwater. The neighbor's backyard looked like a magazine spread. String lights draped between mature oak trees. An outdoor kitchen that cost more than most people's cars. Furniture arranged with the casual precision of professional staging. Bob the host greeted us with practiced warmth while grilling steaks that probably cost $50 each. "How's the real estate investment business treating you?" he asked. Apparently, Anna had already established my fictional occupation. "I helped with this house," I said, gesturing toward Anna's property line. Anna's cough sounded like a car engine refusing to start. "John, tell them about California weather." The conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Vacation homes in the Hamptons, private school admission strategies, wine vintages from trips to Tuscany. I listened to people casually mention spending more on weekend getaways than I'd made in good months. Watched them perform wealth like actors hitting their marks. Jessica, the neighborhood social coordinator, wore her status like jewelry. Every sentence polished to reflect maximum light. "We're considering private tutoring for Madison. Harvard admission is so competitive these days." Sarah nodded knowingly. "Our pediatrician's wife manages applications for Manhattan families. The connections are everything." Mike, who'd apparently built some tech company from nothing, spoke in casual millions while sipping craft cocktails. His success story sounded rehearsed, like a TED talk delivered over backyard barbecue. "The secret is knowing when to scale," he explained to Richard, who listened with the hungry attention of someone always calculating his next advancement. I attempted to contribute. Built a foundation system last year that saved the homeowner $30,000 in structural repairs. Construction consulting and interjected quickly. Very specialized field. But I'd already revealed too much. Bob's eyes sharpened with interest. "You work in construction? Must be quite different from investment real estate." "Different skills, same principles," I said, trying to navigate Anna's fictional minefield. "Foundation work mostly, making sure everything stays solid underneath." Anna positioned herself between me and the more dangerous conversations, steering me towards safer topics like weather and travel. But every subject seemed to lead back to money, status, connections, the currency of their carefully curated world. "Don't share everything, Dad," Anna whispered, during a lull when others focused on Mike's latest acquisition story. "People judge quickly here." The word Dad slipped out like a confession she immediately regretted. She glanced around nervously, but no one had heard over the laughter about someone's yacht maintenance problems. As the evening progressed, I watched these people perform their prosperity with theatrical precision. Every conversation was a carefully choreographed display of success. Every casual mention of expensive purchases a subtle assertion of hierarchy. They weren't just neighbors. They were an audience evaluating each other's performances in the ongoing drama of suburban supremacy. The borrowed shirt felt tighter with each passing hour. I didn't belong in this theater. Couldn't remember my lines in their ongoing production of Perfect Lives. Anna's relief when we finally said our goodbyes was almost palpable, her smile lasting just long enough for the final curtain call. Walking back across the perfectly manicured space between their world and ours, the neighbors' laughter faded behind us like applause from a show I'd never auditioned for. Anna removed her party smile the moment we stepped inside, exhaustion replacing performance like an actress stepping off stage. Richard disappeared to his office for important international calls, leaving us standing in the foyer where expensive silence filled the spaces between us.
"I need some air," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie.
The garage door stood slightly open, caught by the evening breeze. Through the gap, I glimpsed organized shelves and the geometric shadows of stored boxes. Something about that glimpse pulled me forward. Maybe the hope of finding something genuine in this house of careful presentations. I slipped through the opening and pulled the cord for the overhead bulb. Harsh light revealed Anna's organization system in full glory. Christmas decorations labeled by room. Seasonal clothes sorted by size. Lawn equipment arranged with military precision. Everything in its place, everything serving a purpose in the machinery of their perfect life. But tucked behind the holiday storage, almost hidden by strings of carefully wound lights, sat a box labeled in Anna's handwriting.
"Old things, old things."
As if memories had expiration dates, I pulled the box forward. Dust motes dancing in the light like ghosts of forgotten moments. The cardboard felt soft with age.
"Corners worn from handling."
And when I lifted the lid, time folded backward on itself. Photos, dozens of them chronicling the life I'd almost forgotten Anna remembered. Anna at 6, with her front teeth missing, grinning beside the fish we'd caught at Silver Lake. Anna at 12, serious and proud in her first baseball uniform. I taught her to slide into home base the summer after her mother died. Anna at 18 in her graduation cap, my arm around her shoulders. Both of us crying happy tears because we'd made it through the hard years together. My hands trembled as I lifted each photo, these preserved moments of when we were enough for each other. Before social status and neighborhood approval became the measures of worth. Before I became the embarrassing secret she had to hide in garages and careful lies. Beneath the photos lay treasures I'd forgotten I'd given her. The first baseball glove we'd bought together, stiff with age but carefully preserved. A Father's Day card made from construction paper and crayon where 8-year-old Anna had written "Best Dad Ever" in careful block letters. The acceptance letter to her college, and folded inside it my own note of congratulation. I unfolded the paper, recognizing my younger self's handwriting. Never forget who stands with you through everything. Your foundation will always be solid because you're built on love, not just dreams.
"Always yours, Dad." She kept it, I whispered to the garage's patient silence. "But I hid it here."
Every memory preserved but locked away like shameful secrets. The baseball glove I'd bought when I noticed her envying the boys on the playground. The tools I'd given her for high school graduation. "So you'll never need anyone to fix things for you," I'd said, not knowing she'd eventually need fixing from me. Here was our entire relationship, carefully maintained but banished to storage.
Love archived but not displayed.
History acknowledged but never celebrated. I was looking at my daughter's heart, and it lived in a garage behind Christmas decorations and lawnmower fuel. I held up the fishing photo, remembering that perfect Saturday when grief over her mother's death had finally started loosening its grip on both of us. Anna had caught a bass bigger than her forearm, and we'd celebrated with root beer and beef jerky while the sun painted the lake golden. "I gave you everything," I said to that smiling little girl in the photo.
"You gave me this garage." But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't quite fair. Anna had kept these memories when she could have thrown them away, hidden them when she could have destroyed them.
Maybe this garage was in exile. Maybe it was the only safe place she could preserve a father she loved but couldn't acknowledge. I repacked everything carefully, reverently, except for one photo, Anna and me with our fish, both grinning like we'd conquered the world together. This one I slipped into my wallet next to the property contracts. Different kinds of proof, but proof nonetheless. The overhead light clicked off, plunging the garage back into gentle darkness. I stood there for a moment, holding both versions of my daughter, the child who'd needed me and the woman who'd learned to hide that need. Outside, the party's laughter had faded to memory, leaving only the sound of my footsteps on the concrete floor and the whisper of old secrets settling back into their careful storage. Saturday afternoon brought a clarity I hadn't felt since arriving. The morning passed quietly, family sleeping late after their social performance, while I walked the neighborhood with different eyes. Every manicured lawn, every perfect driveway, every symbol of their carefully constructed paradise suddenly looked different when viewed through the lens of ownership rather than exclusion. By 2, Anna had left for grocery shopping with the kids, and Richard disappeared to his golf game with the same neighbors who'd evaluated my worth the night before. The house settled into afternoon silence, giving me the privacy I needed for important business. I sat on the guest room bed with my phone, scrolling through the contacts until I found the name I needed. Tom Martinez, attorney at law. We'd worked together on my previous property purchase, back when Anna was still in college, and grateful for any help her old man could provide. Tom, this is John Garrett. I need you to review the property contract for the house on Maple Drive in Westchester. I want to understand my exact rights as primary stakeholder. His voice carried the same professional warmth I remembered from our earlier dealings. Of course, John, I have your file here. You're referring to the property where you provided the majority investment for your daughter's purchase.
That's correct.
80% ownership based on my $180,000 down payment. Papers rustled through the phone speaker as Tom pulled the relevant documents. I spread my own copies across the white bedspread, photographing each page while we talked. The afternoon light streaming through the window illuminated every signature, every dollar amount, every legal clause that established my position. Without your signature, they cannot modify ownership percentages, transfer title, or make major financial decisions regarding the property. Tom explained with the patience of someone who'd handled similar family situations before. You maintain full legal control as primary stakeholder. I leaned forward, pen poised over a notepad I'd found in the guest room desk. What are my options if I want to exercise those rights? Legally speaking, you could reclaim full occupancy immediately. The current residents would be considered tenants without formal lease agreements. You could also require their signatures on any refinancing, force a sale, or establish formal rental arrangements. The words settled into my mind like pieces of a puzzle, finally finding their proper places. Not revenge, justice, not cruelty, clarity about what belonged to whom.
This isn't about anger, Tom. It's about making sure everyone understands the real foundation this family stands on.
I understand completely, John. Family property disputes require careful handling, but your legal position is quite strong. Do you want me to prepare any formal documentation? I organized the photos on my phone into a systematic folder while we discussed timelines and procedures. Each image represented a different aspect of my investment: down payment receipts, original contracts, amendment forms that Anna and Richard had never bothered to review carefully. Let me think about next steps, I told Tom. I'll call you back early next week with my decision. After hanging up, I sat in the quiet room, surrounded by evidence of my legal standing. 3 days ago, I'd driven across the country hoping for connection with my daughter. Now I held documented proof that I owned the majority of everything she had used to build her new identity. The irony wasn't lost on me. Anna had asked me not to tell the neighbors I was her father. What she hadn't realized was that I didn't need their acceptance. I owned the stage where their entire social performance took place. Car doors slammed in the driveway, followed by Anna's voice, directing the kids to help with groceries. I quickly organized the papers back into their careful order, slipped the phone into my pocket, and emerged from the guest room as Anna struggled through the front door with organic produce and expensive wine.
"How was your morning, Dad?"
she asked, her voice carrying the casual warmth of someone who believed all family relationships operated within predictable boundaries. "Very productive," I replied, helping her with the grocery bags. "Got some important business sorted out." Anna smiled with the satisfaction of someone whose weekend plans were falling into place exactly as organized. "Great. Richard and I are thinking of taking the kids to the lake house tomorrow. Would you mind watching the house just for the day?" I nodded with what I hoped looked like paternal accommodation, happy to keep an eye on things. The irony of watching my own property would have been amusing if it weren't so perfectly symbolic of everything wrong with our current arrangement. By 6, the expensive SUV had disappeared down the tree-lined street, taking Anna's carefully orchestrated family toward whatever lake house adventure Richard's connections had arranged. I stood on the front porch, waving goodbye like the helpful father-in-law, then turned back toward the house that legally belonged primarily to me. For the first time since arriving, I moved through the rooms without the performance of being a guest. No careful steps on hardwood floors, no nervous glances toward family photos that excluded me, no pretending to belong in spaces I'd helped purchase. The transformation felt subtle but profound, like finally standing upright after years of unconscious crouching. The kitchen welcomed me with expensive appliances and Richard's well-stocked refrigerator. I selected a prime ribeye steak, the kind of cut that costs more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. But tonight felt like an occasion worth marking, even if I was the only one who understood why.
Salt and pepper.
That's all good meat needs, despite the cabinet full of exotic spices that Anna probably used to impress dinner guests. I heated the cast-iron skillet, the one practical pan among all the designer cookware, and listened to the steak sizzle with the honest sound of real food being prepared simply. Steak the way she loved it as a kid, I said to the empty kitchen. Remembering Anna at 12, before European trips and organic everything, before the arugula and brief phase, the memory triggered others. Teaching Anna to cook after her mother died, both of us learning that shared meal. His confidence cracked visibly as each call went to voicemail, reality slowly penetrating his assumptions about control and ownership. "The documents are clear," I continued, my voice steady despite the emotional storm swirling around me. "Tom Martinez confirmed everything yesterday. Without my signature, you cannot modify ownership, refinance, or make major decisions about this property." Anna sank into the expensive sofa Richard had probably chosen to impress clients, her hands shaking as the full implications hit her. Not just the house, but the social position it represented, the identity she'd constructed, the security she'd assumed was permanent.
"Why?" she whispered, looking at me with eyes that held equal parts hurt and terror. "Why are you doing this to us?"
I sat down across from her, close enough to see the tears she was trying to hide, far enough to maintain the clarity this conversation required.
Ask yourself that question, Anna. Ask yourself why the man who made this life possible became someone you had to hide from your neighbors.
The children had retreated upstairs, their footsteps echoing through expensive halls. Richard continued his frantic phone calls, his voice growing more strained with each unsuccessful attempt to reach legal salvation. The baby's cry drifted from somewhere in the house, innocent and immediate in its demands. "I need everyone to understand something," I said, standing up with the finality of someone who'd made irreversible decisions.
"This isn't about revenge or punishment.
It's about making sure the foundation of this family is built on truth instead of shame." Anna looked up at me with the same expression she'd worn at 6 years old when I'd explained that her mother wasn't coming home from the hospital. Lost, scared, but still hoping somehow the adults could fix everything. "What happens now?" she asked. I walked toward the guest room, pausing at the threshold of the space I'd been assigned in my own house. Now we figure out what family really means when it's built on honesty instead of hidden sacrifice. 2 hours passed in suffocating silence, punctuated only by the babies, intermittent crying, and Richard's frustrated phone calls to voicemail boxes. I remained in the guest room doorway, watching my daughter's carefully constructed world crumble piece by piece like a house built on sand instead of solid ground. Anna sat hunched on the expensive sofa, mascara creating dark tracks down her cheeks, her designer dress wrinkled from tension. The perfect hostess mask had finally slipped, revealing the frightened woman underneath, who'd built her entire identity on foundations she'd never bothered to examine.
"Dad, please." Her voice cracked like thin ice under pressure.
"You don't understand how people judge here. Your pickup truck, your work clothes, your hands. They see all of that and make assumptions." I stepped into the living room's harsh lighting, noting how the expensive fixtures cast shadows that made everyone look hollow, exhausted. "I understand perfectly, Anna. I gave you everything I had, and you hid me away like a shameful secret." Richard paced between the kitchen and living room, phone pressed to his ear with increasing desperation. Each unanswered call stripped away another layer of his professional confidence, revealing the panic of a man discovering his expertise couldn't solve every problem. "But they look at you and see." Anna's words dissolved into broken sobs. "They see a working man who built something with his hands instead of his connections. You see shame."
That's the real difference between us.
The children had retreated upstairs hours ago, occasionally peering through the banister railings with the wide eyes of witnesses to adult catastrophe.
Only the baby's cries punctuated our family crisis.
Innocent demands for comfort in a house where no one felt particularly comforting. Anna's breakdown accelerated with the relentless inevitability of structural collapse.
I didn't want to be ashamed. When they talk about their families, their histories, their backgrounds, I wanted to belong somewhere that mattered, and I didn't matter.
She looked up at me with eyes that held decades of accumulated guilt, social climbing exhaustion. I became someone I don't recognize, someone who could hide her own father because his truck didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. Richard slammed his phone onto the marble counter, the sound echoing through the kitchen like a gavel of defeat.
Every lawyer I know is either unreachable or tells me the same thing.
Your documentation is ironclad, your legal position unassailable. I moved to the kitchen where the fluorescent lighting revealed every crack in our family foundation. Anna followed her movements, those of someone walking through debris after an earthquake. "What do you want from us?" Richard demanded. His lawyer's training finally kicked in despite personal desperation.
Money, recognition, some kind of formal acknowledgement.
"I want my daughter back," I said simply. "The one who used to be proud of where she came from instead of spending energy hiding it." Anna collapsed against the kitchen island, her perfectly manicured facade completely shattered.
"I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry."
"I don't know who I became or why I thought pretending you didn't exist would make me more worthy of this life." The baby's crying intensified from upstairs, a sound that seemed to pull Anna back toward her maternal responsibilities. Even as her adult world fell apart around her, she moved toward the stairs with mechanical necessity, pausing at the threshold between kitchen and hallway.
"I love you," she whispered without turning around. "I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it honestly."
Richard stood among his expensive appliances, looking like a man who discovered his law degree couldn't rewrite fundamental truths about ownership and sacrifice. His phone buzzed with another returned call, but he didn't reach for it. "What happens now?"
Anne asked from the stairway, holding our grandson against her shoulder, where his crying gradually subsided into exhausted whimpers. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her.
Seeing past the designer clothes and social pretensions to the little girl who used to catch fireflies with me on summer evenings before life became complicated by status and appearances. "Now I go back to California and handle this properly," I said, "through the right channels, with proper documentation, the way things should be done." She nodded with a resigned acceptance of someone who'd finally run out of alternatives to truth. "You'll understand soon enough what justice looks like when it's built on love instead of anger." The baby's breathing had settled into peaceful rhythm against Anna's shoulder, creating a moment of genuine quiet in our storm-tossed evening. For the first time since arriving, I reached out and touched my grandson's tiny hand, feeling his fingers curl around mine with the trust that only innocence possesses. 2 weeks in California had given me time to think, to plan, and to remember what really mattered. Anna called every day, her voice tight with anxiety about consequences she couldn't predict. Richard researched legal precedents that wouldn't help him. I spent the time crafting something they'd never expect. Tom Martinez leaned back in his office chair, reviewing the documents I'd had him prepare, with the thoroughness of someone who'd seen every variation of family property disputes. "This is unusual, John. Most people in your position would simply reclaim the property or force a sale. Most people haven't raised the daughter who betrayed them," I replied, signing the final page with the same careful attention I'd given every important document in my life. "This teaches something different."